In one of my last videos, I shared short films that traumatized me as a kid, and you guys seem to enjoy that one. I also enjoyed making it, so I figured since we are in the spooky season of October, I wanted to share another part of my childhood, and mostly every kid who grew up in the early to mid 2000s, and that is the horror series Goosebumps, but specifically the book covers that scared me as a kid and really stuck with me throughout the years. Also, write down below in the comments which covers creeped you out and still remain in your mind. Alright, let's not waste any more time. Let's get some Goosebumps. Okay, so before we truly get into this, I'm going to be looking at the original covers of Goosebumps, which were created by Tim Jacobus, since those are the ones I grew up with and are the most iconic of the entire series. Okay, let's get into the first book I have here, which is also the very first book of the series, titled Welcome to Dead House, released in July of 1992. Looking at the cover here, we see an old beat-up house with cracked stairs, along with that an old dead tree, but perhaps the most terrifying thing in this whole cover is the man at the window who's peeking, staring at us, the reader, with the door creaked open. It's like we're getting an open invitation to go on in. What I really like about this cover is how all the colors match each other. The stairs, the stars in the sky, with the gray, faded out paint on the house. It's really nice to look at. But what about it scared me as a kid? Well, of course, the man at the window. I mean, that's just creepy. What are his intentions? Why is he staring at you? A quick story time from my childhood. Back when I was younger, I'd go over to my grandma's house a lot after school, and while walking over there, I'd always pass by a house that looked like this. It had broken stairs and a dark window to its attic. The only difference is the house was gated off. I never saw anybody ever go in and out of the house, but people did live there. It was always creepy to me, and it always creeped me out. The window curtains were always closed, so I never saw what was inside. Then on one day, the house just burned down, like the entire house just caught on fire. And the people moved out, and to this day the house still stands, but it's all boarded up and abandoned, and the wood is charred and all faded out. So I guess that's why this cover stuck with me. Anyway, let's move on. Next, we have Night of the Living Dummy, released in May of 1993. Now, like almost every kid, I had a fear of dolls, or in this case, a ventriloquist doll. Here we have Slappy, which is the name of this one on the cover. He looks terrifying. The details on his face, the shine on the skin, even the freckles. Everything here is telling me that this doll is alive, which he is. Slappy is one of the most iconic characters, if not the most iconic character of the entire Goosebumps series, and for good reason. I mean, he's scary. Every time I went somewhere as a kid where they had old dolls, I'd be thinking of Slappy. That's not even a joke, especially in old antique shops. Now, of course, the cover isn't intricate and have a lot going on. We just see Slappy's face, but I think the simplicity of it adds to its overall horror. Moving on. Here we have You Can't Scare Me, released back in January of 1994. Here on this cover, we have three mud smug monsters coming out of muddy water, looking to attack the viewer, which is us. Behind them, we see some trees and thick smoke, adding more to the aesthetic of this overall cover. What I found eerie in this was the three smog monsters. The reason for this is because the way they look, the mud covering their entire body, especially around their mouth and eyes, this picture just suffocates me just by looking at it. I remember being a kid, and every time I would go hiking with my family and walk by muddy little ponds, I would think of these monsters. The one in the front, the trio, even now sometimes many years later passing through, in my mind, I think of these designs. They're really well done. Even when they did the episode for the TV show, they looked accurate. I think another reason why this cover kind of scares me is because it just looks like it's hard to breathe. Like, imagine you turn into one of those monsters, struggling to catch your breath every waking moment. That is actually terrifying. Moving on, we have Night of the Living Dummy 2, released in May of 1993. Unlike the first Night of the Living Dummy, we have some things going on here. We see Slappy sitting on a big pink bed with a twisted smile, but on the bed we see two plushy animals. The first being the bear, looking shocked and staring at Slappy. Then we see the bunny, who looks just absolutely terrified of him. And for good reason. I mean, just look at Slappy. He's scary. But I feel like something that adds this scariness to this cover is the bedroom that we are in. The bed is purposely drawn to look big and tall, and if you look at the wall behind them, it looks like it's never ending. The way it curves up reminds me of the back rooms and liminal spaces. Even the color options here, yes, everything is bright, but it's colors that hurt to look at for a long time. Like, imagine having a room that has green and blue and pink in it. That would give me a headache. This is a cover that always stood out to me and is one of my favorite covers of the entire series. Moving on. Next, we have The Horror at Camp Jelly Jam, released in July of 1995. Starting off, we see just a very disturbing camp counselor who has a big, uncanny smile that reminds me of the Uncanny Valley fear. This guy looks human, but because of his giant smile and even his eyes, it looks like something's off. But looking behind him, we see this camp courtyard with two giant houses that are probably for the campers, but even looking beyond that, we see some giant trees and fields that look like they go on forever. Like the Night of the Living Dummy 2, this one also has that liminal space backrooms vibes to it. It just looks like we are in the middle of nowhere in a dense wooden area, with no place to run, all under the watch of this camp counselor. I never went camping as a kid in terms of staying away from my family for an extended period of time. Sleeping in the woods was something that creeped me out, and being in the tent that can easily be ripped and torn into was something that gave me chills and still does. Actually, last year, me and a couple of friends went camping, and I slept in a tent for the first time ever in my life, and it was a really fun time. But as a kid, part of this fear stemmed from this cover. This dude's smile stayed with me. Add to that sleeping alone in the woods at night, it equaled disaster. Let's move on. Nearing the end here, we have Don't Go to Sleep, released in April of 1997. Now, this is a very cool cover. First, let's look at what's going on here. We're in a small bedroom with a boy who is almost completely covered. He is shrieking in fear as a giant wolf monster hand is coming out from under his bed, ready to grab him. We see the thunder outside of his bedroom shining bright on the dead of night. First of all, just this kid is in pretty bad position. I mean, pretty sure even now when we get nightmares or feel uneasy at night, we ourselves feel like this kid. But in this situation, it's like, what is a cover gonna do against this wolf monster? I mean, come on. What scared me when I was younger was the thought of how big is that monster. If his hand is already the size of the entire bed, how big is the rest of him? And what does he look like? Sleeping in such a vulnerable state of being human. That's when our guard is completely down and we aren't looking out for danger. When I was younger, I had a room like this with the bed in the center. Sometimes when I would sleep, I would think of this cover and imagine a giant wolf hand coming out in the middle of the night and just grab me. Oh no, but thankfully, I'm still here. Before looking at the last one, we have The Curse of Camp Cold Lake, released back in June of 1997. Now, do I even need to explain why this one is scary? First of all, as a kid, I don't know how to swim, and still to this day, I don't even know. But by the way, the thought of drowning was scary to me, and on top of that, a skeleton woman who looks terrifying being in the water with me, who will most likely drag me down with her, is something that I don't really like the idea of. Also, looking at the back, we can see an empty canoe, meaning she probably already drowned her latest victim and is waiting out for the next one. This is a really cool cover. I also really like how the trees and the sunlight looks in the background. A very cool cover and creepy one. Let's move on to the final edition. Finally, on our last cover, it's The Haunted School, released back in September of 1997. Here, we see an open locker with tons of books and papers and pencils flying out, and even a shoe that's on top of the clutter. But looking further into the actual locker itself, we can see 3 ghost kids staring right at us. Now, this is a very clever cover. It's subtle, which I think adds to its fear factor. In one of the last videos I mentioned I had a fear of the dark. This is another reason why. The eyes and the calm faces of these kids, even now, kind of creeps me out. It isn't the dark itself, but what lives in the dark. Another detail I like here is the books and papers are all black and white, symbolizing that them themselves has also lost its color and life through time. And even in this scenario of this cover, I like to imagine it's a kid who went to go open the locker, like normal, and were met with these pairs of 6 eyes staring right back at them. In fear, they fell back, and here we are. A very cool cover, and a very clever one at that. Okay, so now that we have looked at all of the covers, which one still kind of creeps me out to this day, I would have to go with Don't Go to Sleep, a cool cover that I still think about from time to time. Let me know down below what covers in this video or ones from your own childhood creeped you out and still live in a little corner in your mind. Also, please consider checking out some of my other videos and liking and subscribing. Thank you all so much for the huge support on the channel. Really, I honestly mean this. Thank you so much. It means a lot. Thank you. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.